So this is a Ruthie World Travels post, which is solo tripping around the world, and I wanted to talk about some of the things I experienced departing out of New York City's LaGuardia Airport, which, by the way, has had a multiple $100 million renovation done sometime within the last decade or so. But it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. And so when I reached the airport, and they seem to be real strict. They seem to have the airport in lockdown. You cannot get into that front sliding door, and if you cannot produce a departure ticket, on your phone, whatever. And so there was a woman standing there. She looked to be from, I don't know, Pakistan, India. And she kept rushing me. She kept on saying, hurry up, hurry up. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to find it. And then I had, two large suitcases that I needed to get from the curb because they were taken out and I needed to get them in. And she was rushing me. So finally, I had to turn to her and say, hey, I'm a senior citizen. And that seemed to get her off of me. And she kind of backed down. And then when I got in and I was, moving the thing, I took it to the seat, the space where I was going to sit. And she was looking at me. I said, I can only do one thing at a time. And so when I mentioned that to a nice gentleman named Jar, that was his name, he said, oh, yeah, they racist. They hate black people. And I know they do. And then he went on to tell me how in the building of that, the renovating of LaGuardia Airport, they refused to give jobs to local Americans, mainly black Americans. So they brought people in from wherever, India, probably China, Pakistan, wherever. As long as they don't have to use the local people, because that would mean you have to pay them a living wage. And so that was shrouded in controversy when it happened long before ICE. But to me, they've always allowed people into the US um, illegally. And they always knew that those people were coming in to do jobs that they didn't want to give to black people. And now they like to say that, black people don't want to work. That's not true. That's a lie. So I had to learn that about LaGuardia Airport while I was sitting there. And so that lady was, rushing me and stuff. And I was talking to a gentleman who was there to make a connection. He was going to Chicago and then to Aruba. And so we was talking and I said to him, that lady was real pushy with me. She kept on rushing me and she wanted me to hurry up. And so he and I decided we were going to go look at the departure board just to see what time flights were leaving. And my flight, which was at 8 a.m. Monday morning, but I was at the airport at 12 midnight, before 12 midnight. And that was to allow for whatever was going to go wrong, for it to go wrong and me resolve it before it was time to board the flight. And believe you me, something did come up that I needed to have a lot of time to resolve that issue, but it didn't take very long. And the people at LaGuardia were nice. The people behind the counter. For the first time, I got wheelchair assistance because I'm a senior citizen. Yes, so I'm entitled to wheelchair assistance. And so it was a good experience. They, got me through the TSA line, and everything seemed calm at LaGuardia Airport. There was no craziness. I didn't see no lines that was from here to eternity. Everything went pretty smooth. When I got to the TSA X-ray machine, the lady said, "Miss, how old are you?" I told her how old I am, and she said, "Okay." I guess what did she think I wasn't the age that I was supposed to be? Because I know you got to be, I guess, 65 or older to use the wheelchair service, but I needed it. And so she said, "Okay, come stand here." And so I went and stood in the machine while they did their thing and all. But yeah, we bypassed the line. bypassed the line, so it was nice. The guy that took me, his name was Simon. He was very nice, and he got me to the gate, and it was like when I got to the gate, my flight wasn't leaving. So I think while I sat there, I fell asleep, and then I woke back up, and then my flight was leaving, and it was that flight from Miami to Curacao. So it was kind of crazy getting on that flight. No, no, no. This is from New York. So that meant it was from New York to Miami. New York to Miami. And the flight was kind of full. I had a window seat. And whoever was sitting behind me, I don't know what he was doing. I do know what he was doing. He was putting stuff in and out. He kept opening and up the pocket that's behind the seat in the each seat, you know. And it kept feeling like he was diddling with my butt. And I turned around at one point and I said, "Could you stop kicking the seat or whatever it is you're doing?" That's what it feels like you're doing, kicking the seat. Could you stop, please? And then he said, "Sorry." But he was kind of a nuisance. He was coughing without covering his mouth. He was sneezing, blowing, and tapping the back of my seat or going into the pocket in back of the seat. It was so irritating. And when we was getting off that flight, I said to him, I said, "I don't know what you was doing, but it felt like you was diddling with my butt." And he tried to explain what he was doing. And I was like, it doesn't matter. It's very annoying. He tried to apologize. It's like, why can't you just be still? It wasn't a long flight. Why are you in and out of the back of the thing? And anyway. So when I got to Miami, it was close. It was like not a lot of time to get to the connecting flight. And if I didn't have the lady in the club car, I wouldn't have made it because I was the absolute last person to board. If I had to walk it, I wouldn't have made it. Plus, I had my carry on and my Timu bag. So the carry on had to get checked. And it's just as well. So on this flight, I was sitting on an aisle seat. Oh, it seemed like people was walking by deliberately brushing me. For one thing, I cocoon when I sleep. I don't sleep with my face open. I'm not gonna have people looking at me when I'm sleeping. So I always cover up with a big blanket thingy that I take everywhere when I travel. That's so that I could cocoon. And it was okay because I sat as best as I could in the middle of the chair so as not to irritate the guy who was in the middle and not to be too much in the aisle because people was brushing up against me and I was trying not to. I was sitting so that they wouldn't. But one thing a lot of people was doing, they come out the lavatory because I was right the first seat at the lavatory. Yeah, they would kick the seat and the base of the seat is like this metal bar. So you kick the seat, and most people kick the seat. Flying is very stressful, and you have to fly, being prepared for the worst and hoping for the best. That's the best, that's as best I can put it. But so on the flight from so she got me to the gate on time. I was like the last person to board it. It was like, oh, but she was beeping and it was like I could not believe the distance from gate the E terminal to the D terminal. It was like 3-4 miles. It was 3 to 4 miles. Yeah, it was far. She said you wouldn't have made it. I said I know. It takes me 20 minutes to walk a mile, and I didn't have 20 minutes. I did not have 20 minutes to get to that gate. But she got me to D36 and it was so far. When we got to the D terminal, I was like, okay, we at the D terminal, but we still had to go far, far, far more far when we got to the D terminal. And there's no way I could have made it. No way. So I was very grateful to her, and she was happy that she made it too. She was flying through the terminal. I mean, I never seen anything like it, and I was hanging on for dear life. But yeah, so once you start getting wheelchair service and club car service, you have to be prepared to tip people. So yeah, I was able to tip people to get the service and to fly through TSA, and it was good. It was good for me. It saved a lot of time. Um, yeah. So when I got on the flight to The plane going to Curacao. I was sitting across the aisle from a black man. And I said to him, I tapped him. I said, hi. I said, I'm not going to sit this close to you on the flight and not acknowledge you sitting there. So I just wanted to say hi. And he said hi. He smiled. He laughed. I said, yeah, I said hi. I don't think I told him my name. No, I didn't tell him my name. I said, I just wanted to say that. I'm not doing that. I'm not sitting that close to a black man and not acknowledge that he's sitting there next to me. I'm not doing that. That's not in me. Now, if I had spoken to him and he didn't speak back and he acted stuck up and he wanted to be bothered, well, that's on him. And I'd have been okay. I'd have been fine. But yeah. And that was all I said to him. That was all I said to him for like 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. And when the plane started taxiing into Curacao, I said, so is this your first time? He said, oh, I'm from here. I was like, oh. And then, we proceeded to have a conversation. I mean, he'll remember me because I made him laugh. I made him laugh. And I told him his name. I told him my name. He told me his name. He lived there. And I asked a couple questions about some things. And, seemed like it's going to be a normal place to live. And I was like, okay, fine. He told me his name, Patrick. That was his name. And I said, I'll see you. I said, maybe I'll see you in town somewhere. I don't know. Anything can happen. But I didn't ask him for his number, for his WhatsApp and all that stuff. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I don't do that. And he was nice. He was nice, and we had a nice conversation. And yeah, so I believe in being nice to people. Now, if that had been a white man sitting there, I probably wouldn't have said anything to him. I didn't say nothing to the one sitting in the middle. I don't care when people act like they don't want to be bothered. They ain't got to worry about me. But he was receptive and he was nice, and I think he appreciated the fact that I was acknowledging him because I'm sure he gets treated badly by lots of people. And I think it's particularly hurtful when it's black people that be treating black men like that. Black women who want black men to suffer and want them to be in a position of being oppressed. And it's like, it's not right. It's not right. I put black men before white men. As simple as that. If I see a black man and a white man, I'm going towards the black man. I ain't going towards the white man. That don't make sense. So yeah, so we had a nice conversation, and when we got off the plane, I was the last one off the plane, and I don't mind being the last one off the plane because it's like all is pushing and shoving, and people just be acting crazy getting off a plane, and I'll be like, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So y'all go ahead on. I'll be all right. So I just sit until I have like no, I'm the last person. So I was the last person off the plane. This is the second time. And in getting off the plane, I asked one of the attendants. I said, "Do you all have any water? Can I have some water, please?" And I was expecting one of those little things like that. That's what I had been living off of when I was in New York. And she said, "Oh no, we don't have any small ones, but we have these." And it was a purified water, bottle of water, 33 point something ounces. And she gave it to me and she said, here. She said, make sure you hide it. I was like, wow, that's great. So yeah. And so I was nice. And so yeah, I think I was asleep. And she said, yeah, you was covered up while we was coming down. I said, yeah, I cocoon. And I said, that's the only way I can sleep on the plane. That's the only way I can be comfortable on the plane. Plus it keeps all of that shedding from coming because people shed. And that's why I don't like aisle seats because people are shedding. I believe that people shed. So yeah, cocooning to me is a way of keeping that from happening. And so I got the water. So when I got to Barbados, there was people standing there for wheelchair assistance. So the guy, he took me and brought me around and took me through. And when I got through immigration, what they call immigration and custom, it was fast. It was like I was sitting in the wheelchair. He pushed the lady, looked at me, and I thought she wanted me to get up. She said, no. He said, just look at her. So I just looked at her and smiled. I look just like my picture. And so with the problems that I had with the Curacao a DI card, which is digital immigration card. By the time I got there, it had been resolved. They understood that I meant 180 days, calendar days. But because they didn't question me going in, I'm staying until October 6th because that's the day on the ticket, on the return ticket. They didn't ask me one question. They didn't even ask to see a return proof of departure. I could have used that money that I spent for my return ticket now, and during the 6 months while I'm here, I could have gotten a ticket. But the way things are going, I think it's going to be a lot more in 6 months. And I got the ticket for under $400, so I had to get it. I had to get it, and so I'm glad I did. But they didn't ask me one question in the immigration customs. They didn't ask me what I was bringing in, how much cash. They didn't ask about the return ticket. They didn't ask how long I was staying. They didn't ask none of those questions. I'm like, okay, when it's time to leave, I'm gonna say, you know what? When I came in, y'all didn't ask me any questions, and I figured that the digital visa must have been okay. And when I went to leave Antigua back in when was that? So it would have been 2025. When I left Antigua, I had overstayed my visa by 16 days. It couldn't be helped because I decided I didn't want to stay in that country. I didn't want a 6 month extension because they first of all they wanted too much. They just wanted some things that was just unbelievable. And ain't nobody trying to stay in Antigua that bad, that podunk place. I didn't like it. That's the place I've liked the least of all the places I've been to so far. And so I decided I didn't want to stay there. So I didn't want to go through getting a ticket and going through everything they was to put me through. So I had gone to immigration for an extension, but the list of stuff that they wanted in order to stay was too long. So I said, I'm not going back and paying y'all $300 for y'all to say no. I'm gonna say I'm gonna take that money and buy me a ticket. So I bought a ticket for 2 weeks out, and it ended up being 16 days. I'm like, so, and then he was like, I guess he called himself scold to me. I was like, you don't never have to, in my mind, I'm saying, you don't have to worry about me coming back here again. And that was that. And he let me through customs, and, that was that. But sometimes when you travel, you don't know what's gonna happen. Oh my goodness, you just don't know what might happen. So you have to allow for anything. That my first flight to Curacao was via Air Canada, but Air Canada flight bookings is way down because of what happened. A couple of weeks ago in New York City on a Sunday night. So not a lot of people are booking Air Canada flights. But my original the flight to Curacao was going to be via Air Canada, via Toronto, and then on to Curacao. But when I went into to like check in, that was when I learned that the flight had been canceled. And the flight wasn't canceled because of weather, like I was first inclined to believe, because I had seen that there might be a some type of storm delay. But that's not what it was. And another thing, when I went in on the flight, all the seats were available. Most seats were available. There was very few chosen seats. And I was thinking, well, people must be waiting until they get to the gate and just get assigned a seat. But that wasn't it, because so few seats were booked, they canceled that flight. That's what happened. And within an hour or two of having canceled that flight, they had me on another flight, American Airline, going to Miami, then on to Curacao. So it worked like a charm. It worked. And that flight was fully booked. I think I got one of the last two seats that was available on that Miami to Curacao flight. And that's when I ended up with the aisle. And I took the aisle because the only other seat, of course, was a middle seat. And I wasn't having that. Yeah. So traveling, so many things can happen. Um, Overall, I'd have to say the New York City, LaGuardia Airport experience was good. It was good, and I did go back to that lady who was at the door, rushing me. I said, because when me and the young man went to go look at the board to check the departure time, she came to tell us we had to move. We couldn't stand there. That's what she did. And so that was when I said, why do we have to move? And I said, why were you rushing me earlier? And she acted like she didn't understand what I was saying. And whenever somebody acts like they don't understand what I'm saying, I punch the words. I said, "Why were you rushing me earlier?" And so the guy who I was standing with, he saw and he heard. I didn't say it mean. Mm-mm. I didn't act ugly with her. I just wanted I wanted an answer. And then she went on to explain how she has to deal with so many people. And I saw her clearing the area of other people. So I wasn't taking it too hard, but I just felt like she was really, really rushing me. And I was just like, I was moving as fast as I could. And like I said to her, I am a senior citizen. Why are you rushing me? And so she went on to explain that she has to deal with so many people that she's always got to keep the area clean. And like I said, they have LaGuardia Airport on lockdown. You can't get in. And I know it's to keep out the riffraffs, it's to keep out the homeless people who they sleep in the airport like that's genuinely their home. And I know you have to stop it at some point. And with the airport being newly renovated now, a couple of years renovated, they don't want that. They don't want those riffraffs hanging out in the lobby, and they will be there. Just straight as it is, the people that's traveling are laying out on the floors and laying out on the seats to and they're asleep. That's just the way it is at the airport. It's like as long as you got a ticket, and you can prove you have proof of departure, you can sleep. And so that's what people do rather than go to a hotel. And I imagine sometimes you do need the G for a room, and so you can go to a room and relax and all. But sometimes that might be worth too much more trouble than it's worth to go to a hotel. Then you got to come back from the hotel. I'd rather just rough it at the airport sometimes, and I have done that. I have done that on several occasions. More than a few occasions, I've done that. Just stay at the airport, and you'll be all right. And then one thing about being at the airport, you don't have to worry about trying to get there. And anything could go wrong when you're trying to get there. Like when I was leaving Costa Rica, I stayed at a hotel that was close by so that I wouldn't. It was an early flight. It was an early flight out, and that's why that made sense. And he got me to the airport in time, in plenty of time. But that was one time when I was able to get a room close by and then be in close proximity to the airport and then get in there in plenty of time. So sometimes you just have to plan plan your move, what you're gonna do, what you're not gonna do. Sometimes you gotta take a leap of faith. I have taken so many leaps of faith in my travel. I know a lot of people wouldn't do some of the things that I do, but sometimes you just gotta take a leap of faith. And I find in taking leaps of faith, sometimes things work out better than I could have ever planned it. Yeah, for real. So I'm not afraid to take a leap of faith because I feel like if you don't take a chance, and it's a lot of time, if you don't take a chance, you're not gonna know. You never know. You don't know what could have happened if you just had gone on and did it, even blind faith, y'all. Blind faith. Yep. So I believe in faith. Faith has gotten me far. And yeah, taking a leap of faith, a leap of faith is a it's a big deal. And when you take a leap of faith, you know what you're doing. You know you're doing it. You know you're taking a leap of faith. Yes. So yeah, a leap of faith is a leap of faith. And a leap of faith could be a good thing. Let me tell you. Yep. So this went on way longer than I thought it would, but I may have to shorten it. Um, but yeah, I need to tell the stories of the airline stories. So here they are.